Now, okay. Hello, listeners. Today we have our guest, Kira German, based out of Indianapolis. She has been successfully running the childcare business for more than a decade. She's also the founder of Everrise Youth Programs. Since 2003, she's been running youth programs across Indianapolis. Her business, Rising Stars 24-hour childcare, is steadily growing in the city. Today, she's going to share with us her experience as a childcare business owner and what are the challenges, what are the problems, what are the things that anyone wants to start, or even if you're a parent, you want to look at to put your kids in the childcare. So all the topics we're going to cover in this conversation. Welcome, Kira.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so Kira, to start with, how to start childcare business.
Yes, so when you decide that you're ready to start a childcare business, one of the first steps is just using pretty much whatever resources you already have to get your foot in the door. Initially, most of us have dreams of really big, beautiful centers full of children, but it's okay to just start right where you're planted and watching a few children in your home, taking care of children part-time, and then, of course, checking your local laws to see what is necessary to slowly build on that, and start looking for your next step, what type of building you want, what's your goals, and make sure that that building or the home, depending on where you're operating, is capable of taking on the dreams that you want to pursue.
Hmm. So from your perspective, so how did you decide, okay, I'm going to start this business? There's so many other business, right? So why you prefer it?
Yes, well, for me, it was more grounded in just like a spiritual belief that I was kind of led here because
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I tried with to work with older children initially as just my full-time business, and I noticed that it was actually more beneficial for myself and the community if I looked into running a childcare business for younger children. And so pretty much just kind of gotten, a couple signs here and there that this might be more of what I'm destined to do. And so that's what led me, even though I was a little uncertain. After a while, things fell into place so well that I just knew that this was meant to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, we see this, there are some grad school programs for a childcare, undergrad program, childcare management, and, do you, somebody should have that, or does it make sense? Hey, I have this, I went to grad school or I went to college for this, so now I can get into this business. Is that a must or no?
It's definitely not absolutely necessary.
Okay.
It really just depends on the individual and how they have their goals arranged and what they want to achieve. For the most part, I I actually got my education more of the business end first. And once I understood the business side of things and I understood the basics like taxes and personnel, legal, um, different legal parameters, things like that. Then I kind of ventured off into educating myself more on the actual childcare, um, I would say, details and child development. I also had a start in psychology. My bachelor's degree, ironically, was a psychology degree, but right at the last semester, where I was getting ready to just wrap it all up and graduate, I found that it was just becoming too much. My business was growing a little too quickly. We had already started the summer camps and youth programs, and childcare had started to blossom. People were inquiring, and I went ahead and opted for a general studies degree and psychology minor. And I had to wrap back around and finish that later. And
Yeah,
that ended up being very helpful in the long run. Having that psychology basis helps. So there's a few different areas that you can get a formal education that will contribute to a successful childcare career.
sure. So patience is very important in this business, right? So because you deal with people, right? You deal with parents, you have to, handle kids, right? There's a lot of psychology and care in empathizing. These are important things, right?
Yes, of course, being empathetic and kind and patient, those are all a given in childcare. What
Hmm.
I find is a lot of people seem to be a bit surprised that there's many techniques. And
Hmm.
if you understand the techniques in caring for others, whether it's through psychology or elderly care, just any of the care work areas, those techniques can make a difference not only in the work that you're doing in their lives, but even for yourself, to avoid getting overwhelmed, stressed out, burnout, even just working physically harder than you need to. Understanding these techniques are important. And we usually have trainings that help us get what we need when it comes to that. We have on-site trainings, online trainings, things like that.
Hmm. So when you say if you hire people, like say for the daycare providers, childcare providers, so you train them according to your methods. Is it, do you have any framework or you have your own process procedure? How do you onboard those uh, providers?
Yes, so that's a really great question, especially right now when so many childcare providers are experiencing shortage in staffing. So we actually had to scale our onboarding process because we were growing so quickly. When we initially started, word of mouth really helped us out. We just had friends that wanted to come in and help us part time. Some people just wanted to help with the cooking, things like that. But once we got to the point where we were serving multiple families every day around the clock, we found that we needed something a little bit more streamlined. So we created a program on Trello that just kind of helped us keep up with our employees and just get everybody in smoothly and make sure that their trainings were caught up, make sure all the documentations were done. And now I believe that we're even outgrowing that system. So it really just matters if you can find the system that works for your company. Right now, we're looking at using a program called Trainual that pretty much just has online trainings. We can create our own trainings, we can create our own systems and visuals, and it works just for us. But that's just one of many different programs they have out there.
Interesting. So if somebody wants to start, you know, do they have to like what is their initial investment or they can approach like the city, county or the government, local government to support them to start this? Because essentially this is more of a community uplifting, right?
Yes, well, definitely, it's just a very important part of our economy, and we don't hear that enough. Um, the economy of care pretty much keeps us afloat. Once we're born, we need someone to care for us. And, when we're leaving this world in old age, we have someone there caring for us. And right now, it's so in demand. It's very clear that it's just an area that we need good people and we need people who are willing to get out there and make it work. So definitely, it's a big part of the community. To answer your question, if you want to help, you want to get out there, you want to provide a service, and you also want to create a business that is beneficial for yourself and your family, childcare is a great business to start, especially if you're bootstrapping.
Mm.
When you're bootstrapping and building a business from the ground up with barely any funding, just whatever you have right in front of you, that's it's a great place to just get out there, find some customers, and just start where you are. And that's what we did. We started our business with about $850. We
Wow.
yeah, we put a deposit down on a rental home that was outside of our home. And one of my partners moved into the home with her child. I'm sorry, her children. And we just started watching children from there. We designated pretty much areas just for childcare. We made sure we understood how much square footage we needed. And we picked up a few used items, and we pretty much just used items we already had in our homes to get started. And we just started there. Once we got our first couple weeks of tuition payments, we were bringing in a couple $1,000s a month within a few months. And that was
Wow.
enough to just keep feeding into the company. And now we've moved from our original location, which was about 1,800 square feet. Now we're in a location that's 3,600 square feet,
Mm.
and we are serving 42 children at one time. We can have 42 in the mornings and 42
Oh,
overnight.
wow.
But right now we're only serving, I would say, about 50, a little over 55 children between the morning and night shifts. And we grew that from only 12 children maximum
Wow.
at our initial location. And it all started with an $850 deposit on a home.
Wow. That's the best entrepreneurial story over there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, this year we are on track to bring in almost $800,000
Fantastic.
in
Congratulations.
revenues.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took about 13 years to build it up to this point, but honestly, if I had more people like myself that was willing to come out and give information and help me get around these pitfalls and the trial and error, we could have achieved it a lot sooner. And that's definitely why I love speaking about our experience with building a childcare.
Sure. And you mentioned about 13 years and 13 years of day in, day out, right? It's a hard work.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely hard work, but like with anything else, if you educate yourself on systems
Hmm.
and you implement those systems and you make that a priority, you can work a lot smarter
Mm.
instead of harder. And
Sure.
that's what I would definitely suggest for anyone else that comes into this business. Try to think of systems and ways to make your program more efficient and less dependent on you. If I could go back in time, that's exactly what I would tell myself.
Actually, that was one of my questions to ask you, though. So, what the challenges you faced in the initial days as you scaling up, now you're successful? What challenges typically you faced that you know what, this is something that the toughest time that you were at the point of giving up? Do you have any kind of experience?
Oh, well, I don't think we have enough time for that. No, I'm just kidding. It's been a few times, but
Mhm.
those moments are what make us strong. Once
Mhm.
you get through them, you power up in a way. And I've had a few, and after I've met adversity
Sure.
multiple times, I started to notice that I was building faith.
Mm.
And that faith came from the fact that I've been through something similar to this before. I made it through, and it's proven to me that I can make it through this. And
Mm.
that's the joys of having that experience and just focusing on the journey. And there's things where when I initially started, where I would deal with a parent that wasn't as kind or overly concerned to the point where I just couldn't figure out how to make them happy. Or I couldn't manage my time and figure out time to take care of bills and operations while covering the floor and working with the children. Um, when I ran into those moments and I figured out a solution, I then realized that goes into my artillery to be able to continue to fight and make the business
Hmm.
grow. I now have things that I can use and also help other people through it.
Hmm.
So
So it's making you
um,
stronger, right? Stronger and better every day.
yes, yes. And I also created certain things that were just it it was off the table. I would not take anything less than exactly what I set out for. As far as payroll, I always wanted to pay the best that I could possibly pay and nothing less. And so it forced me to strategize until I met that goal because it was a very clear goal. I knew that I wanted to pay at least $2 or $3 per hour more than the average childcare provider in my area. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just strategized until I found ways to make that work. And so every time we ran into a problem, it just gave us an opportunity to find not only a solution for us, but a solution for the industry as a whole.
Sure. So, what question in this topic? So, when you are growing, how do you measure the quality? Like, because see, we always pay the price for the best quality, right? So, in this business, define when you say define the metrics of quality. So, what would that be?
Oh, yes. So there's a few different areas of quality that you want to look at in a child care. And I think this is a very important question because very easily when we're looking for childcare, we tend to look at some of the bells and whistles that we see in front of us, the shiny things, the big, beautiful playground, or the wonderful classrooms with brand new furniture and a very educated staff. But in childcare, quality of care, in my opinion, is more based on the person who is running the childcare, the management, the owner, whether it's a small home childcare or a big facility with 20 classrooms. The manager who's running it and the systems that they have in place, you will see if they're good quality from the moment you call them. Um, are they kind to you? Are they patient? Do you feel valued when you call, even if they don't have space? Do they still greet you with kindness and respect and great customer service? That's a good sign of what's going on behind the scenes.
Mm,
There's also moments where I always tell my staff members, even if the children are crying and throwing a tantrum while we're having a visit from a new parent or from the state agency to come in and do our regulation check, what you will find is how you handle stress tells a lot about you. So if they're running into a problem, if they're busy or if they, for some reason, are kind of stretched thin when you show up and you see that the classroom is giving them a little trouble, how do they handle that? Are they handling it with techniques and patience? Are they screaming out at the children, excuse me, be quiet, please? Or are they using a technique like, give me five, everyone clap if you hear
mm,
me, things like that. So the best way you can do is educate yourself on what you value and make sure that you know what to look for. And then also, I would say, go with your gut, which is kind of a cop out answer, but it's really true. If you feel, even if it's not concrete, something's just not right, stick around. That's
mm,
my third suggestion. Spend time there. Ask them, is it okay if I just kind of sit in the classroom and observe? Anyone that is covering any poor behaviors or if they're not very good quality as far as how they care for the children, they can't fake it very long. If you
mm,
stick around and watch, you'll see some signs that just kind of let you know this might not be the place. Or you'll see something that will impress you and you go, wow, you handled
mhm.
that really well. And so that's where the care starts right there.
Sure, sure. Very nice. So it's like essentially consistency and you make sure you take care of the every, even if you have 50, 100 kids, you put the same set of quality every time, right? Repetition, repetition. So,
Oh,
uh,
definitely.
mm,
Yeah. And it'll just continue to grow. I've
mm,
learned that. You asked a while back in the conversation, what was one of the hardest moments in my
mm,
childcare career? When my business partner and I went separate ways, she moved to a different part of the city and wanted to start her own childcare. And even though it was amicable, it was just a process to go through. It was a change, which isn't always fun. And during August, we usually have a lot of transitions where parents move out of town, they're going to go to a different school. And so when she left, this time period was really just a big challenge for us. And financially, we had more needs than we could provide for.
mm.
And so we were dwindling down to about two children, even though we had up to almost 12 children at that time. People were moving out of town and things like that. And so I really just got emotional and said, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And it hit me that one of the reasons why we've never tried out one of my biggest ideas, which was a 24-hour childcare, was because my partner and I just didn't agree on it. And I said, well, I don't have much to lose. I said maybe I'll consider 24 hours, and that may ironically give me more time and give me more assistance. And so I sat on that for a while, and I kind of wiped the tears from my face and walked back into the classroom and relieved my assistant who was taking over. And I said, I have two children. I'm going to give them the same quality I would give 12.
Wow.
And at that very moment, I kid you not, it was so powerful. I had a older lady knock on my door. She asked me, "Are you 24 hours?"
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I said, "Yes, we are." And I said, "What shift do you need?" And she said 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. And I said, "That's perfect. We actually just opened a 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. shift
There you go.
because I knew we needed the money." Yeah. And so she had three children that she had taken in from her family that needed a guardian. And so she had adopted them. And when I found out they were going to start in 2 weeks, I started hiring, and I brought on a student that was in college. She needed something in the evenings. It was the perfect shift for her. And lo and behold, I finally got off work at 3 p.m. for the first time in years. I was
Wow.
able to leave before 6, and it was the best decision I ever made. That was the beginning of us scaling our business to where it is now.
Yeah, absolutely. And now that you talk about the scaling, so do you foresee, hey, in general, these business like childcare, can you scale up to 10 more locations? Or what have you thought about it? Number one. Number two, what would take you or anyone in your position to go to that stage?
So, the number one is having a system and a plan in place ahead of time, and really just thinking of what could possibly go wrong and coming up with solutions for those to be prepared. Really looking at your goals and having very strategic, precise goals and looking for exactly that. And it's okay to stay on your goal and to keep your goal, but you have to be very flexible in your methods of obtaining those goals. And so staying flexible on your goals and being very stubborn about your goal,
Mhm.
that together will help you get anywhere. And so, like myself, I was flexible when I decided that we needed to expand our hours. That helped us expand. And for our next step, we pretty much have to have a system in place to save money, um, keep the business credit score high, build the credit score so we can obtain a new building, a bigger building, and hopefully serve more families. And you can pretty much repeat the same process. Um, Lastly, there's kind of like an extra little piece to that I think a lot of people sometimes can overlook in childcare. I try to be innovative and figure out ways to provide care with other providers or partnerships and businesses. How can we get a location without having funding? And a lot of times you'll find once you tap into that innovative spirit, you can find there's a business that is open to bringing a child care onto their property. You
Hmm.
may be able to partner with a church, a school. You may be able to do a partnership just for the summertime. Things like that will help you get to that next step.
Hmm. So during this COVID time, and I want to touch on this topic. How did it impacted you in your business, and in the good and the bad, and post COVID, how you see the changes happening?
Yes. So, what COVID helped me recognize as a childcare entrepreneur, it really brought to the forefront when you are following the rules and you are following regulations and you're doing things as much as possible by the book. It's impossible to do it all the time perfectly. It's a lot easier to deal with the unexpected. And that's what happened with us. When COVID hit, a lot of people emphasize having to up the ante on disinfecting and cleaning and masks and things like that. Well, we were already pretty good about keeping up with our systems on cleaning and things. So it took us a whole year before we even had one COVID case. It was unbelievable how long we were able to
Wow.
fight off COVID. Yes, we had not had one case for the first year. So we were already in position and we just kind of made sure that we amplified it wherever we could. And so the other part of COVID, it was a little bit scary at first, but I always try to see whenever there is some type of challenge, it's also an opportunity. And I thought, okay, what's the opportunity here? People were shutting down their childcare facilities because they just weren't prepared and they were scared, rightfully so.
Mhm.
We were prepared and we faced it head on and we were able to grow from COVID. As soon as the facilities closed, we were able to fill up our spaces for overnight, things like that. And we used that opportunity to build, continue to put aside what we need to build.
Hmm. So, so it has prepared you because you follow the systems and you are consistently scaling up your system. So when things like tomorrow something else comes up, you're ready.
Yes, yes. So we were definitely prepared, but the biggest thing that COVID did for us was, in a way, COVID was probably the best thing that ever happened to my business. And
Okay.
I know it sounds kind of dark to say that, but it forced the world.
Hmm.
And we live in a world that tends to almost like idolize and make people famous, you know?
Hmm.
And you can get famous for almost anything. And I'm not knocking these people, but it forced us to really realize who is holding us up. Who is holding us together? Who allows us to go to work every day with a peace of mind? You know, who's caring for the elderly? Who's caring for our children so we can go out and create our business and do our work. And it kind of changed the perspective. People weren't worried about football games and people weren't worried about who's getting drafted in basketball or
Right.
what's the next reality show.
Yeah.
People were turning around and thanking us for showing up to work for a change. And
Sure.
that was the best feeling after being in this business for so many years. And it's quite often a thankless job. Most importantly, they put money behind it.
Mm.
We were able to get grants that we've never dreamed of. And we were able to pay our staff members for the first time a wage that was com- comparable to what everyone else was making in other industries you know, in that same type of area. So it was actually a big relief for us. And I feel like now we're continuing to see that. Now, we have lost a lot of the funding assistance, but we're receiving more support now than we did before COVID, and I'm very appreciative for that.
Wow. Yeah. So definitely it's a transformation for you personally.
Yes, honestly, I don't know if I would be where I am right now, and we're doing really well if
Mm.
COVID hadn't happened. We are serving 3.5 more
Wow.
families before COVID. We're also in position, because we are bringing in more revenues, we're in position to possibly expand our own business and our own childcare and service more children. And of course, that was the goal when they provided us with the funding. And it's working to a certain extent, but it's definitely more that's needed.
Sure. So thank you, Kira. We're gonna run out of time, but I'm gonna ask you one last question, okay? And you want to answer in 3 words, okay? If you want to start all over again, what mistakes would you avoid in 3 words?
In 3 words, I'd create systems.
Okay, from the start, from the right away, from the beginning. That's good. Yeah,
Yes,
interesting.
from the very beginning, I would not create systems, but I would understand. I would study systems
Hmm.
more. Mhm.
Sure. Systems helps you scale, and systems
Yeah.
never goes, you can always tweak the systems. Yeah, interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. So if somebody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way?
So the best way to reach me, you can find me on. My name is Akira German. Akira German Beeman. Now I'm married. And
Good question.
so you can reach out there, or you can just Google my company, Totley Child Care Ministry or Everrise LLC, and you can find us anytime on Google.
Sure. Thank you. For listeners, like we're gonna mention all her Kira's details, contact informations in the description. Feel free to reach out to her. Thank you so much, Kira. Thank you for your time. It was very helpful. I'm sure like it's gonna be helpful for a lot of the listeners. Definitely, we're gonna touch base in the next segment sometime with a different topic. Maybe part 2 after a year. We're gonna connect and say, hey, how are you doing? How is the business?
Oh, yes, that would be wonderful. My next big ambitious goal, I would love to start actually a camp for older children, or some type of, program where it's year round, where we can connect with other providers and create a bigger impact. So hopefully we'll have something more to talk about soon.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much, Kyra. And you have a
Thank
wonderful day.
you.
Yeah.
You have a good one. Thank you
Uh-huh.
so much.
Thank you.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.